So last week we concluded the study of Anuvaka number 4. So now we will go to Anuvaka number 5. The Anuvaka number 5 starts with Namo Bhavaya Cha. So in the fourth Anuvaka, we saw the glory of Shiva as Sarvatmakatvam. Sarvatmakatvam means who is the indweller of all. So Durvasa Maharshi, who is the sage of the fourth Anuvaka, scans the entire creation, all the manifestations that happen in the creation, and discovers Shiva as the indweller of everything in the creation, and the Rishi becomes ecstatic, and the only thing he can say is Namaha. So he takes each one of the aspects and says Namaha, Namaha. So from the fifth Anuvaka to ninth Anuvaka, that is ninth Anuvaka starts with Drabhe, Andasaspate, up to that, the Namaskaras shift in its quality. The shifting of the quality is completely an aspect of Anusandhana, that means meditation. So meditation that is coupled with internalization, because sometimes meditation can also be a duality. That means you are here meditating upon an entity, upon a particular deity, and then the separateness of the deity and the devotee can exist throughout your dhyana. But here you will also see not only that, there is also an internalization. That means slowly the meditator and the meditated will become one. And not only that, at the same time, there is an understanding that is coming out of this meditation, and what I would term it as contemplative understanding. Because again, in understanding, it can be just factual understanding, it can be a logical understanding, it may be a sequential understanding, but for an understanding to become internalized, in that case, it has got to be a contemplative understanding. Because in all studies, once you have studied, then you don't have to go back and study. Once you have studied, you have touched the depth of the knowledge. But here it is not like that. You will never touch the depth of that knowledge, but at any level that you have gone into, that level is an internalization, that level is contemplation, that level is understanding. So that is where the scripture is going to take us. Because, why is it so much introduction was necessary for this? Because from now on, the Rudradhyaya turned towards the asadharana dharma, or the extraordinary quality or the nature. The asadharana rupa, that is the extraordinary format. This rupa has got to be translated as a format, because once you say form, then you give Shiva a form, then it becomes located in time and space. Therefore, we cannot use the word rupa to mean a particular form. Though you do go through a form, it is actually a format. And also the mahima, or the glory. So from now on, you have got to identify these three principles. One is the asadharana dharma of Shiva, the asadharana rupa, and the asadharana mahima. So even the way in which the namaskara is done has to change. In the previous Anuvakas, we saw that the mantras start with Namaha and end with Namaha. Isn't it? Namo Hiranyabhave Senanye Dishancha Pataye Namaha. Whereas from now onwards you will see there is only one namaskara in the beginning. So why is this only one namaskara in the beginning? Because namaskara is the one you start the anusandhana with, meditation with. But as soon as you have meditated, the internalization process goes through. So the prostration, the division between the devotee and the deity, how do you say it has obliterated? It is because you don't keep repeating Namaha, Namaha. So you can see the beautiful structure in which the Rishi, and here the Rishi is none other than Bhagavan Shiva himself. The Rishi is Shiva, the deity worshipped is Shiva, and of course the Chandas is Mahavirat Chandas. So you will also see in the classification, the fifth Anamaka has got 15 mantras. And each mantra starts with Namaha. And then there are two epithets you take. Namo Bhavaya Cha Rudraya Cha. So there are two connectors. So one is the Bhavaya is connected to Rudraya. Then Bhavaya and Rudraya, Bhavaya Cha Rudraya Cha, is now connected with a Cha, a connector to the next whole mantra. So do you see the architecture there? It is one concept of Shiva connected to the next concept of Shiva, that is Bhavaya, a concept, connected to Rudraya with a Cha. But the combined internalization of Bhavaya and Rudraya has now to be connected to the next two mantras individually and collectively. So another Cha is introduced. The point I am trying to make is that not even a single letter can be ignored. If we ignore even a single letter, then our meditation will become incomplete. This is how doubts creep in. How can you study to become free of doubts? Everything has got to be examined very, very diligently. So, the Rishi now says, what is this universe? How did this universe come into its being? It has to come because of an existence. Only because of Sat. So an important Vedantic point has to be noted here. If all the objects that are manifested in the world have birth, growth and death, the six changes, the Shadvikaras are there, that means they are not permanent, isn't it? How can something that is impermanent emanate from a thing that is permanent? If the effect is impermanent, then the cause also has to be impermanent. So that doubt will come. So hence, if all the things that are manifested in the creation is impermanent, then that from which it has emanated also should be impermanent, so Shiva is also impermanent. Isn't it? That kind of fallacy has got to be sorted out. So how do we do that? So beautifully it is given in the Chandogyopanishad, Vacharambanam Vikaro Nama. As soon as you say something in words, what does it mean? It means there is Nama Rupa, isn't it? Nama Rupa is the identifiers of an object. The identifiers of an object has no substance. Clear? Suppose I say in Kannada the name of a vegetable, Sautekai. So those of you who know Kannada, this sound, Sautekai, can be associated with an object. Correct? If you don't know this language, what does that mean to you? आप क्या समझे?
It's a vegetable in but
it is nice, isn't it?
Shabda.
It is nice. That means there is no substance in it. So can we extrapolate this and say that all the Nama Rupas in the creation have no substance? Then, what gives substantiality to something. It is the Sat, that means that which exists only gives substantiality. In one single word, Bhavaya, this great sage, none other than Shiva himself, has taught us this, that all name and form has no substance. And therefore we call it as mithya, so on and so forth. So this insubstantial names, this bhava, has to be used. That's also a word, you may ask me. Then that's also a word, how do I understand? There we take refuge of grammar by saying asmat bhavati jagat iti bhavaha. It is from this idea, from this concept, this entity, the entire universe is born. So as long as we are within the boundary of this confusion that we are in the world and we are of the world, we operate within the world. And therefore we are unable to see beyond the world. So another day when I talk about Shvetashvatara Upanishad, I will show you that in Shvetashvatara Upanishad the sage says, if somebody can roll up the entire space, Akasha, just like you would roll up this sheet, Charmavat. Chapter 6, mantra number 20. If any of you would like to see the reference in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, you can check chapter 6, mantra number 20, talks about this, how a person who has attained a certain jnana will just roll up the entire universe from his awareness and therefore goes beyond. So, this asmat bhavati jagati iti bhavaha. So this bhavaha causes the misery of samsara. So he becomes Rudra. So it comes from the root Rit. Rit means misery, Dra means to melt. That is why I gave the etymology Rudam samsara dukkham dravayati iti. And he becomes a Sharva. Sharva means one who destroys all the sins. Then he is Pashupati. That Pashu means all those who are bound by repeated becomings. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, yasamsare bahudustare kripaya pare pahi murare. That means again taking birth, punarapi jananam, again dying, again and again entering into the womb of different mothers. When are you going to relieve me from this constant becoming? So therefore he becomes Sharva. So what do these four epithets represent? And why is this sequence given? Namo Bhavaya cha, Rudraya cha, Namah Sharvaya cha, Pashupataye cha. These four give us the job description of Parabrahman. Because every organization should have a job description for every role play, isn't it? So what is the job description of this Parabrahman? It is called Panchakrityas. So those of you who are familiar with Lalita Sahasranama, there is a phrase called Panchakritya Parayana. Panchakritya Parayana. So what is this Panchakritya? This Panchakritya are Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Tirobhava and Anugraha. Srishti, creation, which is the role of Brahma. Sthiti is maintenance, that of Vishnu. Laya, that of Rudra. And Tirobhava means concealment and revival. So when we say somebody is dead, what does it mean? That person has gone into Tirobhava. And that person, when that jiva takes rebirth, then it is again a revival. So this and Anugraha is giving moksha. So Shiva Purana relates this to 5 different aspects of deities: Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Mahesha and Shiva himself. In Tantra also, that is Panchakritya Parayana, Devi is called as Kameshwari, the Parabrahma Swarupa Shakti is called Kameshwari. Kameshwara is Parabrahman, and both of them are sitting on a mancha. See again, pancha mancharudha vasini. So she will be sitting on mancha. That mancha consists of the 4 legs. That is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Tirobhava. Moksha can be given only by the knowledge of Parabrahman. So you can see there is a consistency of this description in different scriptures also. Whether you take Rudradhyaya, whether you take Shiva Purana, or you take the Lalita Sahasranama, or you take the iconography. See, if you were to look at that picture there, where we have Shiva in the Gajacharmambara, so the Shiva is inside the covering of the Gajacharma. He is now displaying the 4 of the characteristics. That is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya and Tirobhava he is showing. But what does this Gaja represent? What do you mean by Gaja? Ga means the knowledge, because it comes from the root Gama. Ja means born. That is born out of knowledge. That is why he is Gajacharmambara. And therefore, he is the one who is inside the Gajacharmambara, and then at the same time, just as you would throw away the blanket on you, he can also throw away his blanket of Gaja. So that iconography also is represented in this concept. So this Anuvaka also describes Shiva in the 8-fold forms. It is called Ashtamurti Swarupa. So that is why this is an extraordinarily beautiful and very important Anuvaka also. The Ashtamurti Swarupa, the list is, as you have seen, Bhava, Sharva, Rudra, Pashupati, Ugra, Mahesha, Bhima and Ishana. See, Bhavaya Namaha, Sharvaya Namaha, Rudraya Namaha. We also do this in the Rudrabhisheka. We give Tarpana. Bhavam Devam Tarpayami, Rudram Devam Tarpayami, Shivam Devam Tarpayami, Ishanam Devam Tarpayami, Ugram Devam Tarpayami, Bhimam Devam Tarpayami, Mahato Devam Tarpayami, Pashupater Devataha Tarpayami. So we do Tarpana also for Ashtamurti. So what is this Ashtamurti? This Ashtamurti has been beautifully described by Pushpadanta, one of the Gandharvas, who gave us the Shiva Mahimna Stotra. In Shiva Mahimna Stotra, verse number 28. You will be able to go to that scripture and see Bhavasharvo Rudraha Pashupati Ratho Ugraha Saha Mahan Tatha Bhimeshanau Iti Yad Abhidhana Ashtakamidam Amushmin Pratyekam Pravicharati Deva Shrutirapi Priyaya Asmai Dhamne Pravihitam Namasya Asmi Bhavate. So that means I now glorify all these 8 forms. So since this Shiva Mahimna Stotra and its translation is available on the internet and everywhere, so I will not waste your time in giving the meaning. In another occasion also I have spoken about this Ashtamurti Swarupa by quoting the Nandi Shloka of Abhijnana Shakuntala of Kalidasa. Ya Srishtis Rashturadya Vahati Vidhihutam Ya Haviryacha Hotri Ye Dve Kalam Vidhattaha Shruti Vishayaguna Yasthita Vyapya Vishwam Yamahus Sarvabija Prakritiritiyaya Pranina Pranavantaha Pratyakshabhih Prapannas Tanubhiravatu Saha Ashtabhirashtabhirishaha. So the 8 forms described in Abhijnana Shakuntala Nandi Shloka, in Shiva Mahimna Stotra, all of them are commentaries on just these 4 names. Nama, Namo Bhavaya Cha, Rudraya Cha, Sharvaya Cha, Pashupataye Cha. So we'll continue in the next class.